You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on AngryMarks.com with Peter H. and Stevie J. Find them on Twitter at HardcoreCDN and at AngryMarks. And now, for all the news, reviews, and interviews in mixed martial arts, it's time for Glove Up or Shut Up from AngryMarks.com.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Peter, we have a very big weekend of mixed martial arts action coming up. We've got a one fighting championship show on Saturday morning. We've got two shows Saturday evening. We've got Bellator 192, Lima versus McDonald, and we've got UFC 220 with two title fights. We've got Stipe Miocic defending the heavyweight title against Francis Ngannou, and Daniel Cormier defending the light heavyweight title against Volkan Ozdemir. But to talk about all of this, we have a very special guest, the one and only Paul Ace Fontaine.
Hey guys, how you doing?
We're doing great. And Paul, why don't you give everybody some cheap plugs before we get into all this MMA action? Talk about your website. Talk about the new fight panel that Peter and I are going to be part of with you, Paul. Tell them all about it.
Yeah, no, it's so the picks panel that used to be on WrestlingObserver.com is now moving over to MMADraws.com, which is my website. We're at Wrestling Observer. We're doing our fight, kind of our event previews a little bit differently. They kind of debuted last week, so the panel, most of the panel is moving over, and Peter is stepping in to fill in for John Pollock, who is pretty busy with the launch of his own new website. And I've got one other new guy coming on, Nick Baldwin. And yeah, other than that, most of the old panel's still there. We might even have one or two new people. So we're looking, yeah, so every big event, all the pay-per-views and all the Fox events and any other show that has a title fight or a big name on it, we're doing picks for that as well. And those will go up usually the day of the show, maybe the day before, and we tally them for the year. And last year, Stevie J almost won.
Yeah, it came very close. I think Dave Meltzer and John Pollock finished ahead of me, right?
Yeah, and then you were like, I think it was either one or two fights behind them. So yeah, it was neck and neck, and I was bringing up the rear for the second year. No, actually, last year I was second from the bottom. This year I was right at the bottom. So I'm hoping to rebound this year in a big way.
Well, you run the site, so you can pick the right fights for us to pick.
Yeah, no, I try to do it the right way. Although I got to say, looking at this card on Saturday, I'm struggling to find 5 interesting fights. But I'm sure we'll get into that.
Well, you know what? You could always throw in the main event or the co-main event of Bellator 192 to mix it up a little bit.
I was thinking of that. So we might just do that, actually.
All right, Peter, why don't you lead us through all the things that you want to talk about tonight on this show? Where are we going first?
Well, let's start with UFC 220 from the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts.
Yes, indeed. The two main events I already mentioned. We got Miocic Ngannou, Cormier Ozdemir. And then we got some interesting fights underneath those, but we also have a few fights that aren't happening, which I'm sure you'd like to address.
Well, I'm a little... I think which fight got canceled? Because the one I'm trying to recall is for next week.
Well, Charles Rosa was supposed to face Dan Eag at the event, but Rosa pulled out due to a neck injury. So Eag is facing Julio Arce instead, and Arnold Allen was supposed to face Enrique Bazzola, but Allen pulled out due to visa issues and was replaced by Matt Bessette, who you may remember was on the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, but he's also known for his appearances in Bellator MMA.
Okay. That sounds like, those are some pretty decent replacements, especially Bessette. That'd be a great fight on the prelims on Fight Pass. But, Paul, let's start with the top of the card here. Let's start with Miocic and Ngannou. Overall, this fight should be... How do I say this? It seems to me like this fight came across a little quick, in my opinion, but what are your thoughts?
Well, to me, this kind of reminds me of when John Jones was coming up, and they kind of rushed him into that title fight with was it Lyoto Machida or Shogun that he won the title from? Whichever it was like he won a fight 1 month on TV, and then Rashad Evans was supposed to fight for the title, and then he got injured, so they kind of rushed Jones right into the spot because they wanted to strike while the iron's hot, and I think that's what's happening here.
It was Shogun who at UFC 128.
Yeah, right, New Jersey, and so he won the title, and then that just kind of kick-started his career, and it never quite got as high as everyone hoped it would, but I mean he's a pretty big star for a number of years, and Ngannou. Obviously he's won 3 straight fights, all by KO, and I think they're hoping that he makes it 4 in a row, four in a row by first round. 1 submission, 3 KOs. So they're hoping that he's gonna take the title, and then, there's some big fights down the line for him, I think. I've heard rumblings that, he may call out Brock Lesnar even, if he wins the title.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm very interested in that fight. And Miocic, people seem to be writing him off. He's a big underdog, which surprises me. But Ngannou, he's been unstoppable since his first fight in UFC.
Yeah, Stevie, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the line may have narrowed since the last time Paul looked at it, because right now I'm looking at minus 185 for Nagano and plus 160 for Miocic on 5 dimes. So it's not a complete...
So that has, because the last time I saw it, it was 235 for Miocic the last time I looked. So those lines are coming down.
He's getting some of that respect back. And Miocic definitely deserves it. If you look at the track record, the who's who of people that he's beat, not only as the champion, but on his way up to being the champion. He beat Mark Hunt, Andrei Arlovsky, Fabricio Verdum, Alistair Overeem, and Junior Dos Santos. So he's beaten the cream of the crop at heavyweight. And you can't say that he isn't legitimately the best heavyweight on the planet at this present time. But the reason there's so much hype around Nagano is that highlight reel knockout of Alistair Overeem where he hit him with the uppercut and lifted him off his feet. And they are pushing this storyline really hard in all of their press clips and all of their countdown shows that Francis Ngannou has, quote, the hardest recorded punch on the planet, unquote. I don't know if I believe that narrative, but when you say that phrase and you show that highlight clip, you can sure make people think it's true.
Well, and gotta remember that hardest punch recorded was with the other hand, not the one that knocked out Overeem, but it was his other hand that recorded the hardest punch ever. So, yeah, this is like a fairy tale or a movie, and that KO was like right out of Mike Tyson's Punch Out. I can't wait for this fight, honestly.
Yeah, but that's just the thing. You're talking about fairy tales and highlight reels, and these things don't necessarily happen to people when they face Stipe Miocic. They think they're going to be the highlight reel, and he is put down one man after another. Everybody that thinks they've got Stipe Miocic figured out has learned otherwise, and I think Francis Ngannou just might too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, and I do feel like there's a lot of buzz around this. So, one of these guys is going to come out of this, I think, as a much bigger star than they're going into it as. So that's always good for UFC as well.
And whoever wins it, I don't think it's going more than a round or two. I don't see this going the full 5.
No,
and I don't want it to.
That's kind of how I felt about the main event of the UFC Fight Night, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
I just can't remember the last time I had UFC heavyweight champion go into a fight as the underdog.
No, it's, it may be, like Couture. Like, I don't know. It's been a while.
I don't know. It's going to be a great fight, but yeah, Stevie, you're right. This fight definitely won't go the full 5.
No. And there's a strong possibility of that in the co-main event as well.
Yeah, Daniel Cormier and Volkan Ozdemir. Ozdemir made press not for the best of reasons leading up to the fight, and had a recent court date, and he pled not guilty to
Aggravated battery.
There you go. At a drinking establishment, I guess we'll say. And Cormier, well, he's Cormier. He's coming off a loss, not a loss, against John Jones, and now we're going to see what happens if he's the Cormier of old, or does Ozdemir use the game tape from the last fight to beat Cormier and win the title?
Well, here we have the champion actually coming in as the favorite, minus 300 to plus 250 for Ozdemir. And if you think about the fact that the only person who has ever made Daniel Cormier look bad is John Jones, and this is not John Jones, I think that's actually the right line. I feel like Daniel Cormier can repeatedly take Volkan Ozdemir down to the ground, which is something that he hasn't really experienced recently because he's been knocking people out hard and fast in the first round every time. And I think Cormier's got a better chin than Misha Cirkunov or Jimmy Manoa. What do you say, Paul?
I mean, that's, you gotta think so. But, I mean, Ozdemir, I mean, he comes at you from weird angles. So, I mean, Cormier's got to be prepared for that. And I think, like, my thinking going into this is, all things equal, if we see the same Daniel Cormier that we've seen up till now, he should pretty handily be able to weather that early storm and then just kind of grind him down. But at some point, you know, Cormier's getting up there in age, and at some point, you know, he's going to slow down. And I feel like that last fight might have took a lot out of him. So it'll be interesting to see what if any effects there are of that. And yeah, like, I mean, I think the odds makers have this one right. Like, Ozdemir is, you know, he's kind of an unknown quantity, but, you know, and he's also got a lot going on outside that, you know, you can't just write that off. So yeah, I am interested in this, you know, quite a bit.
I'm just trying to figure out if it's the Cormier from old, or with everything going on with the John Jones saga, and I'm pretty confident in saying probably not going to see them fight ever again. Does he have the game plan in mind, the game mindset to put that in the rearview mirror and, you know, kind of evolve from it into a better fighter?
If you've been reading his Twitter today, he's definitely got his mind on the fight, because he has out and out told several pro wrestlers, don't bother me with your bullshit. I got bigger things to deal with.
I saw he made up with Young Bucks, though.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but I mean, then again, I mean, he's wasting his time on Twitter arguing with the Young Bucks when he should be training. By the way, I looked it up as everyone was talking here, and it was Couture against Lesnar was the last time the champion was an underdog going into a heavyweight title fight. So
wow.
There you go. Yeah.
That's not surprising given how much hype Brock Lesnar had at the time coming into that fight.
Yeah. But yeah, that just shows you that, you know, generally the heavyweight champion is, you know, he's got and earned respect. And really, like, if Stipe wins this fight, he's got to enter the conversation as, and sorry to go back to that fight, but he's got to enter the conversation as the best heavyweight of all time.
Yeah, he'd have, I think, I might not even be wrong saying this, but I believe he would have more successful title defenses than Cain Velasquez, Brock Lesnar, or Frank Mir.
Maybe combined.
Maybe combined. Yeah, you might be right.
Well,
yeah.
Who in the division right now can take the title from him?
Well, if Francis Ngannou can't, there's probably not many people who can.
I mean, some people will say Derek Lewis, but, you know, I don't know. Volkov might be an interesting matchup for him. You know, I do think that would be, you know, a very interesting fight, but I definitely wouldn't favor Volkov, but I also wouldn't be the most surprising result I've ever seen if he were to get that fight win.
And if you look beyond Volkov, it's not very deep at that point. You got like your Marcin Tybura and your Alexei Olenek and your Junior Albinis. I don't think any of those guys are beating Stipe Miocic.
I think Josh Barnett's still in the top 10.
Gears.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing him on my list, but I might be looking at my own rankings.
Yeah. But yeah, that tells you about the heavy.
I think he's facing a 4-year suspension. I don't think he'll be fighting anytime soon.
Yeah, and I thought they removed people when they were on suspension. That's why I'm not seeing him on mine.
Oh, there you go. So that's why. But again, it's, Bigfoot Silva would be ranked if he was still in the UFC.
This is true.
Yeah. But yeah, back to Cormier, yeah, I think, and him too, if it's not for John Jones, we're talking about, probably one of the best light heavyweights of all time.
I've been saying that on this show. I'm like, give Daniel Cormier his respect, because in terms of being best light heavyweight on the planet, other than a guy who repeatedly fails drug tests, he is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just unfortunate. And nobody, the general public, all they're going to remember is Jones beating him twice. And nothing Cormier can do is ever going to change that. Unless he was to, maybe, go back up to heavyweight and win the title there, or, God forbid, cut to middleweight, which I don't think is possible. But
oh, no.
As long as he's at light heavyweight, he's going to have that John Jones shadow on him forever.
Well, here's his chance to set the narrative then by going out there and beating Volkan Ozdemir convincingly and reminding people that he's a bad, bad man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a bad idea. Cormier goes to heavyweight, fights the winner of Miocic and Nagano.
Yeah.
Well,
then you got another division on ice.
Yeah, that's why I don't necessarily like that idea. But Peter, why don't we move on with the rest of the main card?
Well, let's go with Shane Burgos and Calvin Kattar.
The line on that fight, as of right now, is almost dead even. Minus 125 Burgos, plus 105 Kattar.
Burgos is undefeated, and he's dead even with Kattar. It's interesting.
Well, it should be noted that neither of these guys is in the top 15 for featherweights.
Oh, could be knocking on the door, though.
Burgos might be if he gets another win.
What do you think, Paul?
I think it's pretty obvious they're trying to push Burgos as a future, somebody. But neither of these guys are. Maybe the winner gets into the top 15, but these guys are a long way from contender status. And to me, this fight just screams fight past prelim, and I can't believe it's on the card.
Wow.
Ouch.
Yeah. As long as I see it.
No.
But they're both. They're both on pretty good runs. So, Burgos is undefeated. Kattar's won 9 in a row. So maybe I'm not giving him enough credit.
I'll just go with Burgos for being the guy with the slightly better line and being a Tiger Schulman fighter. So I like Team Tiger Schulman. I've been a fan of their work.
I'll go with Kattar because I like his name. The Boston finisher. We're in Boston. Come on.
That's true.
I'm going to go with Burgos just because I'm a Leafs fan and we hate Boston.
There you go. This is some prime analysis.
Well, with a fight that's not even worthy of Fight Pass, that's what's going to happen.
No, I said fight past prelim.
Oh, it's worthy of Fight Pass, but not higher than that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Peter, what's
I'm
next?
not wrong.
You're not, no. Peter, what's next?
Gian Vellante and Francimar Barroso.
All right. We got a light heavyweight fight here, and we've actually got some guys who've at least tasted the top 15 on occasion, although I don't believe either of them are currently, but minus 170 for Vellante and plus 150 for Barroso.
I'm going to go with Vellante on this one. I think that it won't be an easy fight for him, but I think he'll win it in the third round. I don't know, I'm leaning submission, but I've been wrong before, so I'm going to say submission.
I'm feeling Vellante too, even though his record is pretty spotty of late. He lost to Shogun, he lost to Patrick Cummins. It's been at least half a year since the last fight, and that was a split decision, so maybe we don't take too much away from Vellante on that one and consider that he improved in the interim. And Barroso, his record is not really any better over his last 4 fights. He's got a loss, a no contest, a win, and a loss. So, all things being equal in that respect, I tip my hat to the guy who I think is the better fighter, who's proven it against better competition, and that's Volante.
And I'll go with Volante as well. I think he's going to win by decision. I think it's going to be a boring fight. Both guys just kind of keeping their distance from each other. And yeah, he's going to kind of grind out a boring decision. And that might be the last we see of Barrasso for a while.
Might indeed.
And rounding up the main card, we got Rob Font and Thomas Almeida.
Practically a coin flip. Minus 120 Almeida, plus 100 for Font in this bantamweight fight.
Fight of the night here, I think, from what I'm looking at.
Actually, yeah. And two top 15 guys, too. Number 10 for Almeida and 14 for Font.
I like Font in this one. I think the crowd is going to be behind him. I think he's going to kick off the main card with a bang. And I like him getting maybe like a second-round KO.
He may have the worst nickname in MMA history, though. Times New Roman Font.
Oh my god.
That's
horrible.
Terrible. That makes,
worse than touchy-feely.
That makes Dean of Mean Jardine sound like poetry by comparison.
Wow.
What was that one in Bellator? Room with a View?
Oh, yeah, Travis Room with a View.
Beast in 25. That's pretty bad, too.
Yes. I hear a child screaming, and that's the appropriate reaction to all of these nicknames.
Yeah, that'll end right away.
You know, I have a hard time picking it, not just because of the lines, but because Thomas Almeida, up until he lost that fight to Cody Garbrandt, I thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread to come along in the bantamweight division, and he had run up an incredible record up to that point. He was 21-0. So, he's had a little bit of a hard time lately in his last 3 fights, won 1, lost 2, but I feel like the whirling dervish, the sensational striker that Thomas Almeida was up to that point, is still there. And even though Rob Font is definitely a quality fighter who's getting good wins, he's 8 out of his last 10, I'm counting on seeing the old Thomas Almeida come back with a fury here. I'm going with Almeida.
I'm going to go with Almeida as well, but if he has to keep the fight on the ground, I think. I think everyone's expecting to stay on the feet. I think if Almeida takes the fight to the ground, he might surprise and win by second-round submission.
And I think at least one of these guys, and maybe both, is going to win a performance of the night.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That seems
Good bet on that happen.
I could see Fight of the Night going to the main event or the co-main event, and Performance of the Night definitely going here.
Yeah.
All right, so let's briefly look at the prelims. Paul, I'll start with you. Is there anything on the prelims you want to mention here?
I mean, there's not much there. I guess for me, like, I like the women's fights, and the strawweight fight between Marina Moroz and Jamie Moyle is something I'm kind of interested in. I've kind of liked Moroz ever since her debut, and she's had a couple tough losses, but I do think that she's someone that I've always kind of followed. And her loss to Carla Esparza looks a lot better in retrospect, since Esparza just won a big fight over Cynthia Calvillo. So, I'm hopeful. I'm kind of looking forward to that fight. But other than that, Dustin Ortiz is always fun to watch, but there's nothing here.
Yeah, I was looking at the Ortiz fight as well, but the Moroz fight, Moroz has a 6-inch height advantage here.
I've seen her in person, and she's tiny, and I don't know, like, I don't know where they're getting that height. Like, it says here she's 5'7", but I mean, she was way shorter than me, and I'm not a tall guy.
Well, I'm going to point out one fight on this card that amuses me just because it feels like a Bellator fight on a UFC card. It's Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Saba Omasi. I've seen both of these guys fight in Bellator, and not that long ago.
Al Hassan, I think I saw that fight as well as last Bellator fight.
Mm-hmm. So that might be.
I
Go ahead.
am looking forward to the. Sorry, I am looking forward to the debut of Julio Arce. I've seen a few of his Ring of Combat fights, and he's been on the regional scene forever. And it's nice to see him get a call up finally, even if it is a late replacement. So I hope he does well.
Yeah, I think that's a fight to look forward to, especially, Peter likes to say playing with house money when it comes to guys coming in on late notice. And if Julio Arce wants to go out there and make a statement and get a full UFC contract, he's got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I would be like, make fun of my name. I dare you. I dare you to make fun of me.
What if Arce got a Darce? That would be the best thing. That would be fabulous.
Forget Elf on the Shelf.
Yeah, Arce with a Darce.
And his nickname, White Mai? Come on. I may have just made that up.
No, actually, you know what? That's perfect, though, because the guys over at the Undisputed Nerdcast, they've interviewed a guy named White Mike.
No, I said Wipe My.
Oh, White My. Oh, okay. Wipe my arse. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Stevie.
I thought he said White Mike. It must have been
No,
Mike.
no.
Great man in the business.
Yeah. No, I may have just made that up.
All right.
All right, let's transition to Bellator 192 and just Quentin Rampage Jackson and Chael Sonnen fighting in 2018.
At heavyweight.
At heavyweight.
I know. You would have told me this 2 years ago, I would have said you're drunk.
Did you hear what Rampage said to me on the press conference?
Oh, no.
No.
I asked him what his ideal weight was for the fight, and he said, well, I'd like to be 210, but I'm not gonna be.
Well, Chael walks around at 220, 225?
Yeah, he said his ideal weight for the fight would be 217.
There you go.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, honestly, 5 years ago, this fight would have been two guys past their prime. And when you did the show kickoff, you said Bellator 192 Lima versus McDonald. I think they just changed it. I think it's Rampage Sonnen is the main event, and that's those guys are headliners now.
Well, I made this very comment to my wife when we went out for dinner tonight. I said, there's a welterweight title fight tonight, but they're putting all the mustard on the Sonnen Rampage fight because they probably figure that's the bigger draw for the casual audience. So if you're right and they actually did just switch it, then that just goes along with all the publicity and everything they've been sending out, because all the countdown videos have been about Sonnen and Rampage, and all the articles have been about Sonnen and Rampage. So it definitely seems like they're putting that focus in that spot, even though personally, as not just somebody who's been dazzled by Rory McDonald and his performances in the past, but knowing what Douglas Lima is capable of and how he's come back from adversity to win the welterweight title a second time and done it against killer competition, and I mean literal killer guys with dynamite in their hand like Paul Daly. I give Douglas Lima all the respect in the world as one of the world's best welterweights, and as a matter of fact, so does Chael Sonnen, and he made a point of that on the conference call.
Yeah, no, this is a hell of a co-main or main, whatever it is, and then, people are writing Douglas Lima off, and I have no idea why. Rory's obviously one of the best welterweights in the world, but if Lima could beat him, I mean, he's got to be top 3 in the world.
There's no question at that point. He'd have to be.
Yeah. And I mean, and he dominated Larkin. He beat Koreshkov, who'd looked unbeatable. And like you said, he dominated Daly as well. So, this fight, I mean, this is really the main event for, if it's a sport. But if it's a TV event, then obviously it has to be, Sonnen and
yeah, if it's a 10-pull show, absolutely.
Yeah, this is the vegetables that you're getting with your lobster, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, it's the mashed potatoes and the asparagus on the side.
There you go. Yeah, and then you got Michael Chandler's the cheesecake you get afterwards.
Well, I hope he makes cheesecake out of Gochi Yamauchi.
Yeah, that's going to be a great fight.
Mm-hmm. He's got to be very careful if he goes to the ground with Yamauchi, because that guy's got like 18 out of 20 submissions.
Yeah, but he is moving up, right? He's been a featherweight before in the past, and Chandler's a big lightweight, so this is going to be a good one. And then like Kirakanian and Corrales, I mean, honestly, like that's a pretty deep main card for Bellator.
Yeah,
like that's Kirakanian and Corrales was, that's a main event on some shows.
Yeah, if this was like Bellator 193, that actually could be the main event.
Yeah, and then you got Aaron Pico, fighting probably in the opener. So yeah, no, and I'll probably be covering this one for the Observer site, because they don't usually cover Bellator, but I think they'll be doing this one. So, I'm honestly out of the two, I'm looking forward to the two main events on the UFC card, but if you're talking about the overall card, way this one.
Yeah, in fact, this Bellator card is actually so deep that their blue chip prospect Joey Davis is on the prelims on ParamountNetwork.com, and Conry Gracie, a guy they've had me write several articles about for MMA Mania, he's also on the prelims.
And Joey Davis too?
Yeah, and Joey Davis, like I said.
Yeah, but I mean, the Davis fight. I thought you said somebody else. So like that fight, the Davis fight, the Gracie fight, I think you'll see them on the main card if we get any early finishes. Mm-hmm. We'll probably see, if not highlights, maybe even the whole fight.
Yeah,
Bellator has a tendency to do that.
Anytime any of those guys in the Fab Five, the wrestling blue chippers that they signed, any of them get a quick finish on the prelims, they always bonus it on TV.
Yeah, which is, they do things right, Bellator. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only thing I don't know is that when in the States it's now the Paramount Network.
That's right.
I just checked here in Canada, it's still listed as Spike.
I think it's also listed as Spike in the UK as well. I don't think it's changed everywhere.
Okay.
And has it actually changed now in the US? Like, was it January 1st or?
As far as I know, it changed over at the start of the year because every press release I get now says live on the Paramount Network.
Yeah, no, I've seen that too. For some reason, I thought maybe the Bellator event was actually going to kick off the change.
Yeah, maybe.
It could be. I know it'll be the first Bellator on the newly christened Paramount Network. Either way, so.
Okay. I'm reading the latest press release from Bellator, and it says Bellator is joining forces with Boost Mobile, the undisputed value champion, blah blah blah, and available on the soon-to-launch Paramount Network. And this was just sent today.
Yeah, I got that Boost Mobile thing too, and I was having a heck of a time writing it up because they didn't even include any logos for it. It's like, come on, at least give me something I could plug into the article.
I'm just lazy. I just copy them and paste it onto my site.
I can't do that. I actually got to give it my own spin and write it up. Although I almost got in trouble because I was started in my head to write it sarcastically, like, wow, Boost Mobile. And I was like, no, I can't do that. Delete, 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 delete.
But no, so it does say soon to launch. So I recall hearing that somewhere. So I think actually like this weekend is when they do the official launch.
Okay.
And it rebrands as Paramount. So maybe that'll happen here too. I don't know. I've been curious about that too. I've been looking at that. So.
I honestly
and it's
just
still
assumed
Spike.com.
it. Yeah. I didn't even think about it because honestly the only times I watch Spike are when I'm covering Bellator. So I didn't even realize, it's like, what else do they have on? Cops. 24 hours a day of Cops.
Lip Sync Battle, man. You gotta watch that.
Cops
Bar Rescue.
And that Ink Masters show, the tattoo show.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. But hey, they just air those nonstop and, you got a network.
I guess so.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I am, like I said, looking forward to that. Again though, the guy they got fighting Pico, Shane Krushton, I mean, he's won in World Series of Fighting. Like, he's 12-3. Like, this isn't a pushover.
No, in fact, he's a 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu guy, the same camp that has produced killers like Alimale McFarlane.
I mean, if he loses this fight, this got to go down as some of the worst promoting of a prospect I've ever seen.
Well, they keep giving him like 10-fight guys. Like his very first fight, was a guy who was 8-2.
You got to get some fat guy from the bar to fight these guys for the first 4 or 5 fights. I was serious. I know
But
people
okay,
want
these are
competition.
featherweights. How many fat guys are you going to find at featherweight? Not very many.
No, you get some straw weight.
Some really fat strawweight. Okay, that.
Yeah, there you go. No, I'm joking, but I mean they're doing it right with with like Ed Ruth. I mean, you see some of his opponents, and Fortune, like they're just giving these guys complete tomato cans. And Pico tells them, "Oh, I want competition." But I mean, you got to do this the right way.
Well, yeah, like the Joey Davis fight. The guy he's fighting is 3-3-1, and he's lost all 3 of his Bellator fights.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
I mean, get Mike Jackson, bring him in to fight Aaron Pico.
Bring in CM Punk to fight Aaron Pico.
No, I'm not. Just want to transition to some UFC news that just broke within the last hour or so. OSP, who was supposed to fight Iri Latifi, just sent out a tweet saying Latifi's injured and will not be fighting.
That's bad news.
There goes the Charlotte co-main event. The main event is Souza and Brunson. That's UFC on Fox 27.
Probably not enough time to get OSP a new opponent.
No.
It's hard, right? I mean, that's a quick turnaround, right? But basically, he tweeted it in the picture, and he just captioned, "Who wants some?" I don't want any of OSP. I don't know about you, Stevie.
No, that's not a guy you would want to take on short notice.
No,
But,
yeah, we're 11 days out. Unless you get a middleweight, that's maybe.
But here's the kicker, though. The kicker is he's saying, "I'm even open to going up in weight."
This does bring up a question. I want to pose this to the whole panel because I heard this very same discussion over at Wrestling Observer. Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez were talking about the fact that for the fight that was supposed to take place on Sunday night, this will also be our transition into that card. There was a situation where they offered 2 different opponents to Vitor Belfort, and he turned both of them down. And one of them would have been some guy, I can't even remember his name, of who they had gotten for that night, or it would have been a fight with that same guy a week later. And he had already, as Dave put it, he had peaked for his fight with Uriah Hall. He was in shape, he was ready, he had trained for this guy, he didn't want to fight anybody else, and they weren't going to pay him unless he fought somebody. Now, do you think that Vitor Belfort should have at least been paid his show money, considering he showed up for the fight and he made the weight and he was ready?
Absolutely. He should have got his show money. I honestly think they should get their win money when the opponent doesn't make weight, but at the very least, his show money.
Yeah, and that's what Dave said too. It's like, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, it's a win because his opponent didn't show up, so that's like a forfeit.
And Belfort, I mean, does he even have a win bonus? I mean, he's probably got just a guarantee, I would think.
Yeah, I doubt he's like a 500 and 500 guy. He's probably just paid $1 million up front.
Is it that much?
I don't know. I mean, he is a legend of the sport, so I got to assume if he's not 7 figures, he's in the mid-6s somewhere.
Yeah. Either way, you train, you make weight. Your opponent, I mean, like they were ready to go, and at the very least. And honestly, if it was anybody else, I think they get it. But because Belfort comes with such a high ticket, that's probably why. And the same thing happened with Verdum, a couple months ago, and he took the fight. So maybe they told him, if you don't take the fight, you're not going to get paid. And Belfort, he's like, maybe he thinks he's got a good enough case. I could see this going to court, honestly, because he should get paid.
Yeah. No argument from me. I just wanted to know what everybody else thought. And Peter, you haven't chimed in yet.
Well, I agree with Paul when it comes to, he should get his show money for sure. And I think if the opponent misses weight and pulls out of the fight, you get the win money as well. If you show up and you hit the scale, you did everything you're supposed to do, and your opponent can't do the same. Now, Hall apparently, I'm not sure if it was a seizure or he fainted, but it was a pretty scary situation. And he spent the night in hospital, and obviously kidney issues. So, Dana White calls out people who miss weight. When it comes to a situation like, your kidneys are literally shutting down because you can't make that weight. I've said on the show before, if your kidneys are saying this, maybe choose a different weight class.
Well, that was the reason Daniel Cormier fought at heavyweight for such a long time, because he was trying to cut weight for the Olympics and his body shut down.
Yeah, you've got to. I mean, you got to bring down your natural weight, or you got to change weight classes. And honestly, Uriah Hall is too small to compete at 205. So there's a problem there. Like he's trying to keep on too much muscle mass, obviously, and then he's cutting and then replenishing. Like he's not a big middleweight, but he's, he wants to keep that power and he wants to keep that muscle mass. So he's forced to cut all this weight. And I said it on Twitter, and it's honestly like one of the most interaction I got from any tweet. Like somebody's gonna die until something's done, and and this was scary. And I can't see anything changing until a tragedy happens, and even then, and a tragedy has happened. I mean, someone died in ONE FC, but this is until it happens here, nothing's gonna change, and even then, it's probably gonna take a while.
Yeah. The only place that's even come close to trying to make a change is California, because they switched to the early morning weigh-ins and they disallow fighters who are like more than 10% off their weight from even fighting at all. Even if they can like make the cut that day, they're like, no, you're just disqualified. Yeah. You can't fight. Yeah, well, yeah. I just read three fighters that were on a recent show there were told afterwards that next time you fight, you got to move up a weight class. Because they weigh them the day of the fight and see what their weight is. Mm-hmm. And if they're more than 10% over, then they got to move up a weight class. And I think that's the way to go. Unfortunately, the thing that fight promotions are going to do is they're just not going to run shows in California. So unless every other state adopts that same set of rules, it's not going to help.
They should have done it to Cyborg.
Well, there's a lot of things that should be done about Cyborg.
Well, no, weigh her on the day of the fight. There's no way she made that weight day of the fight.
No. And that's why she didn't fight in California.
All right, let's talk. Let's move on to UFC Fight Night 124. Stevens and Do Choi. Stevie, I'll start with you. I'll start with the story about Stevie. Sends me a message after the Elkins fight. What did I tell you about Elkins? What did I tell you? And I'm getting home from an outing, and I'm like, what did I miss? Check my PVR. I'm like, okay, sure.
Oh, you were so hyped up about Michael Johnson, and I kept telling you, you forget how tough Darren Elkins is. And sure, Michael Johnson pasted him several times in that first round, but Darren Elkins got a chin like granite, and he's a great wrestler, and he could take almost anybody in that division down. And once Michael Johnson got tired of punching him in the face and ran out of gas, that's exactly what happened. Elkins took him to the ground and humbled him with a rear naked choke.
Well, no, what happened was Johnson kicked him in the cup, and as the leg was falling down, basically Elkins just fell on top of him and didn't let him get back up. He's like, "Fuck, I'll take the kick in the cup if it means that you're on your back. I'll take you."
I still consider that to be a takedown.
I thought the result of that fight was inevitable. I mean, it was going to happen at some point. Either it was going to be a submission, or he was just going to, wrestle bleep him until, he cried mama. And the crowd they started off so hot, and they were so behind their local guy in the first round. And then when he submitted, it was just like, they were so deflated. And Elkins, I used to hate him. I used to hate Elkins. He was my least favorite fighter, and I probably the last 3 or 4 fights, I've just come around on him completely. And he's like now one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's a fun guy to watch. He's a tough out for anybody in that featherweight division.
Yeah, and I'd love to see him in Ortega.
Oh, ooh. Yeah. In fact, he called him out after the fight, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and then the winner of that against Holloway, I don't know how that goes. I try to picture it in my head, and it's just, how do you beat Elkins, right? And then Ortega, he's never out of a fight. So yeah, that's, that should main event like an FS1 show, and then the winner gets a title shot, in my opinion.
I assume you guys got that same press release I got today about UFC 222.
No.
Holloway and Edgar in the main event.
Is that in Hawaii?
That's Saturday, March 3rd at the T-Mobile Arena.
Oh, in Vegas. Yeah, Vegas, yeah. Wow. And that's the main event.
That is the main event. Co-mains are Stefan Struve versus Andrei Arlovsky and Kat Zingano versus Caitlin Vieira.
They're going to need a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have some time to put a few more fights on that card between now and then.
Yeah.
Put OSP on that card.
They could.
But let's move on to Usman and Meek because we're running low on time. But
Sure.
Did Meek ever bleed like a sieve on this fight?
Yeah. And I'm still puzzling over Usman's post-fight promo when he said, "I did this at only 30%. What was he talking about? Did he have an injury that he didn't disclose? What was the deal with that?
He clarified that in the post fight. That's what he's basically saying. He was only at 30%. He wasn't saying he was putting 30% effort. He was saying he was only at 30%.
So
is what he's saying.
What was his injury then? What did he say it was?
He didn't. He just said he had a bad camp. He wasn't feeling 100%. He was feeling 30%.
Oh.
So, yeah. I don't know when everyone's like talking about him being boring. Like I was fascinated by this fight. I could watch Kamaru Usman all day long.
Oh,
I just love excellence.
I said the same thing to Peter before this fight. Usman himself said it after his last fight before this one. He said, "I'm a problem." And I watch him at welterweight, and I look at how strong he is and how hard he hits and how easily he could take guys off their feet, and I think, yeah, he is a problem.
Yeah, he's basically a welterweight version of Khabib. You know, like he's just going to take you down anytime he wants. And when you're not down, he's controlling you. Once he gets attached to you, you're not getting away from him. Like, yeah, he's not going to be slugging it out on the feet, but he doesn't have to. And, until somebody can stay away from him, he's just going to keep doing it. And yeah, he's a problem.
Absolutely. Shout out to the University of Nebraska at Kearney.
More exciting than Askin, I'll give him that.
Oh, I like Askin.
Yeah, I do too. But he's retired now.
All right, let's move on to Jessica Rose Clark and Paige Van Zandt. And watching this fight, you knew something was wrong after the first round.
I gotta say, the real story of this fight is not the fight. I want to find, pardon my language, but I want to find the fucking asshole who robbed her house and kicked her cat and killed the cat. Justice for Dwight.
Yeah,
that's messed up.
And she managed to pull it out. I don't know what Paige Van Zandt was thinking going to flyweight, but she wasn't exactly a big strawweight. So I think that was the story of this fight. Like anytime they went to the ground, there was no way she was getting up. And she trains with Team Alpha Male, so it's not like she's not prepared for it. She just doesn't have the size or strength to compete with that. On the feet, she obviously, the third round was all on the feet, and she won the third round. But she was so outsized. But she doesn't want to make a cut to 115, so this is, I think, where she's at.
Well, she's kind of screwed then, because if she can't make the cut to 115, she's not big enough to hang with these girls at 125.
No.
And she's going to have surgery because after the first round, apparently it was the spinning back fist where she broke her arm. And she's having surgery this week, apparently.
Which, ironically, during the fight, was drawing comparisons to Uriah Faber from her own Team Alpha Male, because they were talking about the fight where Faber broke both of his hands and continued to fight with only his elbows. That was the only strikes he could throw.
But when do you, as a cornerman or corner person, when do you say, they got a broken limb here, maybe we should throw in the towel?
Some fighters just won't quit.
Well, that's where the corner's supposed to step in and quit for you.
That's true.
Protect the fighter, even though they think they can still go. Although, what was it? It was GSP with, I think I tore my groin. You're okay. You got another one.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of injuries, I know we got to talk about the main event, but you guys got to check out my MMA interview with Michael Chandler this week on MMA Mania, because he basically says it was a pinched nerve, even though he couldn't stand on that ankle back at Bellator MSG. He says he could have gone on and fought.
A pinched nerve.
A pinched nerve. That's what he says. Didn't have surgery. He says it just cleared up after the fight.
I guess we'll find out on Saturday.
Yeah, we will.
All right, well, let's talk about the main event. Doho Choi against Jeremy Stevens, and wow, what a 2-round fight we had here.
Yeah, this was everything you and I wanted it to be when we previewed this fight. We wanted it to be short, brutal, exciting, and a knockout finish, and we got all of those things.
Yeah, I gotta say I was surprised. I mean, Stevens was a bit of an underdog going into it, and, he's kind of been win one, lose one his whole career in the UFC. But, Choi, I think that fight, at the end of 2016 took a lot out of him. And you saw that here. He was a lot more tentative, a lot slower. And, and he paid the price.
Mm-hmm. Going 5 rounds with Cub Swanson will take a lot out of most featherweights. That's not a fight that most people want to have. That'll change careers.
Yeah. And he took a beating there.
Yeah. Oh, when Stevens knocked him down again in the second round, and then he started rearing back and dropping those fists and elbows, I mean, you could just tell that was gonna be the end of the fight. He was leaping over on top of him at full force, ramming down on his head. And that final shot that he tried to throw, he actually hit the referee, because the referee jumped on top of Duo Choi to save him. So Stevens clocked the ref in the back of the head.
Yeah, that was brutal. But I mean, and then that was the kind of thing like in the Swanson fight where, he would have taken that big shot and just got up and started firing back. And he just, he didn't have it. No. And, I don't know where he goes from here, but, and Stevens probably got himself another 2-3 years of main eventing, FS1 shows out of that.
Absolutely. And you know what? That was an incredibly classy promo afterward by Stevens. Bringing in the Korean translator and saying, please say thank you to my opponent and thank you to his countrymen. That was a beautiful thing he did.
And asking for a fight in South Korea. I thought that was really cool too.
I know. I want to see that. I would love to see Jeremy Stevens take a fight in Seoul. I think that would be a great story.
Stevie, you were complaining in the past for that Macau time, though, remember?
In this case, it's worth it. And you know what? It's worth it for one fighting, too. I've kind of come around on that.
Well, that's what PBRs are for.
Except when you're covering it live, because I'm going to be covering it live at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Oh, yuck. Well, there you go. You can get Stevens and the Zombie fighting in South Korea.
You know what? I love that. Why not? Let's do that.
Yeah, I could see that, especially in a few months. I mean, that country's going to be pretty busy for the next couple of weeks of the Olympics, and in a couple of months they want another big world-class event to come to their country, so why not UFC?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yep. Well, we're running up on time, Stevie. Actually, Paul, you want to do the plugs one more time? Anything else you want to mention before we wrap things up?
Sure. Paul Lace Fontaine on Twitter. MMAdraws.com is where you can find my coverage of all the big shows, including the picks panel debuting this weekend. I'll be sending out the info. Really looking forward to that this year, see how it goes. And WrestlingObserver.com as well is where you can find my stuff.
Awesome.
All right, Stevie, what's on tap for Thursday night AMP?
Well, we're going to have the upcoming Fantastica Mania shows, New Japan and CMLL, to talk about. Obviously, a little bit of news regarding certain wrestlers that are no longer medically able to compete we'll have to discuss. And interesting developments with Mixed Match Challenge. So we'll follow all those things on Thursday night AMP.
No, we won't be able to watch that up here in Canada. I think it's a U.S. only show.
Oh, it replays on the network.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah, it's added to the schedule. Yeah.
Cool. Check that out. And also I heard there was a wrestler this past week who has never heard of Uber.
Oh, yeah. We'll be talking about that too. Or maybe he should have gotten a Lyft, L-Y-F-T. But either way, he should not have gotten behind the wheel in Hidalgo, Texas.
He's blowing 0.21-ish. Sorry.
Yeah, he's blowing more than day one-ish right now. That's for damn sure.
All right. Well, for Ace and for Stevie, I'm Peter H., the Hardcore Canadian. Thanks for listening. And as I always say, never leave it to the judges. Good night, everybody.